was President Obama Sunday in the White House all day.
The news says you let the world down.
The absence of any U.S. leader now has the White House on the defensive.
This was Obama's sort of calling card coming into office, which is why it seems so shocking.
It's stubborn, tone deaf.
That was a stunning absence. Just look at the pictures of the Unity March. One former official said it sure seems ham-handed.
They think it's small stuff, and it ends up being big stuff.
Sounds like amateur.
It's inexplicable.
Somebody wasn't thinking at the White House over the weekend, and that's clear.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, those are all people that you might call on the left. Joining us now is Ari Fleischer, former White House spokesman and President George W. Bush administration and president of Ari Fleischer Sports Communications. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon, morning to you, Steve.
Good talking to you. All right, so blunder, purposefully done. When you hear Josh Earnest not being able to answer or choosing to answer where the president was on that Sunday, I mean, what do you see in here?
Yeah, not going was the initial blunder and a terrible one. Think of your European, what signal it sent. And secondly, the manner in which they initially handled it at first was a follow-on blunder because they weren't ready for it and they didn't realize how damaging it was. The only conceivable reason I can think of to help the White House here is if this was really a 24 to 48-hour notice, the Secret Service would have said to any White House, we can't arrange for it in that short amount of time. We need more time to get over there and prepare. And that always puts the White House into a tizzy. But I don't know if that happened here. I just know that they mishandled it.
When George W. Bush went to Yankee Stadium for the World Series, how far in advance was that planned, do you believe?
Well, typically people will get up there about a week ahead of time, a little less than a week ahead of time, and really start to work with local security and work out all the details. But, you know, especially when you're going abroad, first you have to send an army of agents abroad. And
right.
It's not as if it's just a 3-hour, 2-hour flight. It's very complicated for what they have to do.
But other heads of state did it.
Outdoor event.
Yeah. Right, but other heads of state did it.
I understand that, Stephen. I'm not trying to defend the administration.
No, I'm just asking.
It was a blunder, but I always try to think of both sides on these issues. The only issue I can say to you there is American security for an American president puts everybody else's security, with the exception of Israel's. Nobody else has similar security. Nobody else is as burdensome and as bothersome to anywhere they go.
I want you to hear this soundbite from Josh Earnest talking about the magazine and the issue of freedom of speech in general. He said this 2 days ago. Let's listen.
There is nothing that the individuals at that satirical magazine did that justified in any way the kind of violence that we saw in Paris last week. None. That is, I think, the most important principle that's at stake here. At the same time, it would not be the first time that there has been a discussion in this country about the kinds of responsibilities that go along with exercising the right to freedom of speech.
And he was following up on a question about Jay Carney, who 2 years ago actually took this magazine to task at a White House press briefing for using bad judgment in publishing those cartoons. So, you know, we've had a president running around from the Sony affair to this, trumpeting free speech, yet here, you know, and he goes on to say the president will not shy away, and neither will I, from weighing in on when basically free speech has gone too far. And they use this as the excuse. If it puts our troops in harm's way, if there might be a backlash against our troops. How do you read that? Yeah, how do you read that?
If we can reward the people who make the worst, most vile threats, then we'll reward them. I mean, that's what that means. If they can intimidate us and therefore put our troops into danger, et cetera, and really we're only talking about one group, radical Islamists, then we'll bend over backwards. That's how I interpret that. You know, that statement, particularly in the days after the attack, should have been full stop after there is nothing that the people at that magazine did to justify this. Full stop.
Right.
Don't try to contradict, justify what Jay Carney previously said. You just full stop it right there. I think there could be a time, a different time and place where people talk about how appropriate these cartoons are. I think we've all seen examples of people who take free speech and go too far with them. There were cases in New York City many years ago where they had just absolutely foul, mockeries of God and of Jesus and of religion at an art exhibit in New York, and it really raised a lot of
havoc. The crucifix in urine, absolutely.
That's right. And so people can take their liberties and go too far. But you know what? You don't talk about it in that context right after 12 were massacred.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. We didn't have a chance to get to sports today, Ari. I wanted your take on the Jets GM and coach, but we'll have to wait for another time. As always, my friend, thank you very much.
Glad to be with you, Steve. Thank you.
Take care. Ari Fleischer, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll be back with the Malzberg panel coming up after the break. But first, did you know when we bought Louisiana from the French in 1803, it was the largest and cheapest land purchase in U.S. history? Haha. Let's take a look now at the Louisiana Purchase, and we're going to do that with this hour's American Moment. It's coming your way next on Newsmax Television.
Thomas Jefferson is credited with doubling the nation's size through the Louisiana Purchase. But it was events far beyond his control that made that purchase possible. After becoming president in 1801, Jefferson recognized the Mississippi River had become a major trade route bordering the eastern boundaries of the United States. But he also recognized its vulnerability, since the city that controlled the mouth of the Mississippi, New Orleans, was owned by the French. America's overtures to purchase the city of New Orleans were repeatedly rejected by the French until 1803, when the French Navy suffered a major defeat off the coast of what is now Haiti. Napoleon found himself needing money to rebuild his navy. Consequently, when in that same year, Secretary of State James Monroe again traveled to Paris with an offer to purchase New Orleans, he was pleasantly surprised to learn Napoleon was willing to sell not only New Orleans, but all of France's territories in the New World. The United States was ready to spend up to $10 million to purchase just the city. So when Napoleon offered to sell all of their land holdings for a total of $15 million, the future president accepted. In one action, 828,000 square miles covering the future states of Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Texas, and Wyoming became part of America for less than 3 cents per acre. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.